If you're doing a social sciences dissertation, you are going to have to get reflexive. This is essentially about acknowledging your role in the research process. So how do you actually do that? Keep watching, because in this video, I'm going to explain what reflexivity is, why it's important to qualitative researchers in particular, and I'll walk you through some examples to show you how to be reflexive in particular parts of your dissertation. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yardley, and I've spent the last 2 decades working in UK universities, supporting students through dissertations at undergrad, postgrad, and PhD level. Everything I've learnt, I'm turning into videos for this YouTube channel. You're welcome. So first up, what is reflexivity and why does it matter to qualitative researchers? Reflexivity is about reflecting on how your own experiences and values and beliefs might impact on how you do your research. Being open and transparent about this is standard practice in qualitative research, because the role of the researcher is something that is really important to qualitative research as a whole. We can see why this is the case in this graphic right here. As a qualitative researcher, you research with people. You immerse yourself in research environments. You seek to understand things and identify the meanings. Qualitative research isn't about trying to be detached and objective, because as a qualitative researcher, you probably don't even believe that that's possible. The way you go about making sense of what you're studying is very different from how a purely quantitative researcher would do this. They seek to be objective and detached and value-free, observing from the outside the researcher and the researched. Quantitative research is concerned with reliability. The idea that somebody else could come along and follow your process and obtain similar results, which is based on the belief that the researcher is essentially interchangeable. And I find that kind of sad, because, full disclosure, in my own research, I lead more towards the qualitative end of the spectrum. The criteria for rigor in quantitative research includes things like this, things like reliability. But the criteria for rigor in qualitative research is different. It's more about factors like trustworthiness and authenticity. To what extent have you accessed people's authentic experiences in the research? To what extent have you yourself been authentic in the research? However, I've got to caution you here, because there is a line between being reflexive and being solipsistic. Side note here. I didn't actually know what solipsistic meant for a very long time, and I had to go and look it up in the dictionary. I thought it was something to do with astronomy. It's actually about being self-centered and selfish and thinking that the world revolves around you. There are some researchers who are reflexive and there are others who are solipsistic, so don't be the latter. And if you overhear somebody saying that you're a solipsistic researcher, they're not paying you a compliment. Anyway, in summary, reflexivity is about reflecting on how your own experiences, values, and beliefs might impact on how you approach and conduct research. That is important in qualitative research, because this type of research acknowledges that the researcher isn't just a researcher. They are a unique and a complex human who brings a lot of their own stuff to the research. And that is a-okay, as long as they're open and transparent about it. If you're finding this video helpful so far, if things are getting a bit clearer, hit that like button, because it really does make a huge difference in ensuring that other people can find this video too. Okay, next up, where in your dissertation can you be reflexive, and what might this look like? Let's examine a couple of examples. One example is about a dissertation exploring young people's drinking behaviour and social media, with this title: Doing it for the gram. To what extent are young people's choices of alcoholic beverages on nights out performative? Another is a project exploring online entrepreneurialism among young women and has this title: Is the side hustle worth it? Young female entrepreneurs' experiences of misogyny and harassment on handmade platforms. So where might these students be reflexive in their dissertations, and where might you be reflexive in yours? Well, firstly, you can be reflexive in your dissertation's introduction chapter. One of the important things that the introduction chapter of any dissertation addresses is, why is it important to do this research? And there is your opportunity to highlight why you consider this to be an important research topic to explore. How have your past experiences in a particular profession or area of life influenced your decision to pursue this specific research project? You might write something like this or this. Feel free to pause the video if you want to take a screenshot of these. You can also be reflexive in the literature review, and one particular place you might bring this in is when you're identifying the areas of the literature relevant to your study. Your own positioning can actually help bridge gaps between separate bodies of literature. The student looking at young people's drinking behaviour and social media might encompass the public health literature, but from what they've seen and experienced, they might want to explore the literature around marketing too. So they might write something like this. Again, feel free to pause the video if you want to take a screenshot. What about the student looking at online entrepreneurialism among women? They will certainly have to engage with the business literature, but they will also be bringing in other literature around gender-based abuse and misogyny. So they might write something like this. Again, feel free to screenshot this if that's going to be helpful. Now, before we get on to the next part of this video, if the tips I've shared so far are going to help you make progress and push that needle forward, please hit that subscribe button because I have a lot more videos on the way just like this one. Moving on, the methodology chapter is another part of the dissertation where you can be reflexive. This is an opportunity to think about how you position yourself in relation to your research participants. Did you see yourself as one of them? Did you identify with them? And as such, did you take an insider perspective? What were some of the challenges associated with that? What impact did that have on your research? Or did you see yourself as actually quite different from your participants in some way, taking more of an outsider or an observer perspective? What challenges came up there in terms of how you thought about your research participants? What impact did that have on your project? For example, the student looking at young people's drinking behaviour and social media. Let's say that whilst this student worked in bars, they were actually teetotal. They didn't consume alcohol themselves, but they were studying another group of young people who did drink. So how much did their choice not to drink impact upon their views of their participants who did? And how did this impact on their interactions with their participants with whom they were doing semi-structured interviews? They might write something like this. Again, take another screenshot if you want to. Now, let's take that student doing a study of online entrepreneurialism among young women. And let's say that this student was also doing an interview study. Say she had an online business herself, so she was able to draw on her own experiences and her familiarity with the processes and the language around this topic, and very much felt like an insider. However, she sometimes found the discussion veering off course because her participants were talking to her about things and asking her about things that weren't always relevant to the research, and she felt awkward about trying to steer them back on course. Her role as a member of the community she was researching, her insider status, was something that was quite challenging for her research. So she might write something like this. Again, screenshot away if you want to. So can you see how reflexivity can come into multiple parts of your dissertation? There is a tendency to think that it should just be confined to your methodology, but it can actually be used in other sections too, like your introduction and your literature review. I hope you now feel a bit more confident with reflexivity and ready to start getting all reflexive in relation to your own study. If you want more tips like this, and this, and this, and other assorted topics annoyingly popping up on your screen right now, become a Degree Doctor Insider by subscribing to my weekly emails. And if you sign up for my email list right now, you will get these lovely freebies that are going to be super helpful in keeping your dissertation on track. Details of how you can sign up are in the description, so go and check that out. And I will be back here soon with more dissertation tips.